In the heart of Washington, D.C., beneath the veneer of law and order, a secret government was at work. It had its own army, its own funding, and its own foreign policy. It operated in the shadows, accountable to no one. This was not a foreign enemy. It was a cabal of American patriots, operating out of the most powerful building in the world. They were driven by two desperate, intertwined crises: American lives held captive by terrorists, and a covert war against communism in Central America. The solution they devised was audacious, illegal, and would ultimately threaten the foundations of American democracy. They would sell weapons to a sworn enemy to free the hostages, and use the profits to fund a secret war. The 1,980 seconds. America, under President Ronald Reagan, was projecting an image of strength and renewed confidence. The Cold War was at its zenith, a global chess match against the Soviet evil empire. But behind the resolute speeches, the administration was facing two explosive foreign policy nightmares. The first was in the Middle East. In the war-torn streets of Lebanon, Hezbollah, a radical group with ties to Iran, was kidnapping American citizens. CIA station chiefs, journalists, university professors held in darkness, their lives hanging by a thread. We will not make concessions to terrorists. To do so would only invite more terrorism. Publicly, the policy was clear. America does not negotiate with terrorists, but privately, the president was haunted by the fate of the hostages. Inside the National Security Council, a desperate plan began to form. Maybe, just maybe, there was a back channel. Iran, the sponsor of Hezbollah, was locked in a bloody war with Iraq. They were desperate for American weapons, especially anti-tank TOW missiles. What if a deal could be struck? The second crisis was thousands of miles away, in the backyard of the United States. In Nicaragua, the Reagan administration was obsessed with overthrowing the left-wing Sandinista government. Their chosen instrument, a proxy army of rebels, known as the Contras. To Reagan, the Contras were freedom fighters. To his opponents in Congress, they were a brutal militia with a history of human rights abuses. Fearing another Vietnam, Congress passed the Boland Amendment, a series of laws that explicitly banned U.S. government funding for the Contras. The CIA was cut off. The money was gone. For the true believers in the administration, this was an unacceptable betrayal. The war had to continue, with or without the law. They needed a man who could get things done, no matter the obstacle. They needed a Marine. They needed Ollie North. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North was a can-do patriot, a decorated Vietnam vet assigned to the National Security Council. He was tireless, zealous, and utterly devoted to President Reagan's agenda. When Congress cut off the Contras, North was tasked with finding another way. He called it the Enterprise. It was a shadow government in miniature, a completely off-the-books operation. North, with the help of a retired Air Force general and a network of private operatives, arranged for secret cash donations from foreign governments and wealthy American donors. They bought planes, ships, and weapons, creating a private supply chain for the Contras. And then came the masterstroke, the neat idea, as North would later call it. The secret arms sales to Iran were happening. Why not overcharge them? Take the excess profits, the millions of dollars paid by the Ayatollah's government, and divert them to fund the Contra war. Two birds, one illegal stone. Arms for hostages, and the profits for the freedom fighters. It was the perfect covert loop. And it was completely illegal. On the 5th of October 1986, the house of cards began to teeter. A cargo plane, part of North's secret supply network, was shot down over Nicaragua. The lone survivor, an American named Eugene Hassenfuss, was captured by the Sandinistas. He told the world he was working for the CIA. We have not, I repeat, not had anything to do with that plane or those people. The White House denied everything, but just 1 month later, the other shoe dropped. A small Lebanese magazine published a bombshell story. The United States, in defiance of its own public policy, was secretly selling weapons to Iran. The story was quickly confirmed. Inside the White House, panic set in. It was a shredding party. Oliver North and his loyal secretary, Fawn Hall, worked frantically to destroy thousands of documents, the paper trail of the shadow government. They shredded so many papers, they broke the machine. The secret was out. The two operations were connected. The scandal had a name: Iran-Contra. The summer of 1987. For 41 days, America was captivated by a real-life political drama, the Iran-Contra hearings. The nation watched as a cast of high-ranking officials testified, many of them painting a portrait of a president who was disengaged and unaware of the actions of his own staff. But the star of the show was Oliver North. For 6 days of testimony, North held the nation spellbound. He presented himself not as a rogue operator, but as a patriot, doing what was necessary to fight for American interests when Congress would not. A strange phenomenon swept the country: Ali mania. Support telegrams flooded into Washington. People saw him as a hero. He admitted to lying to Congress, shredding documents, and running a secret foreign policy, and for many, it only made them admire him more. But patriotism is no defense against the law. Independent counsel Lawrence Walsh pursued charges against 14 administration officials. 11 were convicted or pleaded guilty, including National Security Advisor John Poindexter. Oliver North himself was convicted on 3 felony counts. Yet, there would be no final reckoning. North's conviction was thrown out on appeal. Others received immunity for their testimony. And for those still facing justice, the story took one final, controversial twist. On Christmas Eve, 1992, in the final days of his presidency, George H.W. Bush issued pardons to 6 key figures in the scandal, including former Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger. The final trials would never happen. The full story, many believed, would be buried forever. The ultimate question, what did President Reagan know, was never definitively answered. The official report concluded he had created the environment in which the scandal could occur, but in the end, the shadow government had protected its own. It raised a chilling question that remains today. In the name of national security, how far is too far, and who is truly in charge?